Well, welcome to the Life's Worth Living podcast. I'm your host, John Gossett, and I'd like to thank our sponsor, GTM Builders, for allowing us to record in their beautiful model home. If you're in the market for a new home, reach out to GTM Builders or go to gtmbuilders.com. They have 4 model homes here in the Valley that you can come and walk through and take a look at different models they have available. And it's a great time right now with interest rates that are low. And so big shout out to GTM Builders. We can't thank them enough for all they do for the foundation. Tonight's episode is brought to you by A. Warner Homes Real Estate. A. Warner Homes Real Estate is a local realtor here in northern Utah, and they've got a special offer. If you are a veteran or first responder, they will pay for your appraisal and your home inspection if you mention you heard it here on the podcast. Reach out to A. Warner Homes Real Estate at 801-867-5078. So I'm super excited to have a guest with me tonight, Bob Kittell. Bob, I'm going to run through some of his bio. Bob is a big-time speaker, motivational speaker. He has spoken with Rudy Giuliani, Colin Powell, gone on tour with Zig Ziglar, 4 presidents. I think I read 300 cities around the globe. You speak to arenas full of people, and I get nervous doing a podcast. So I'm super stoked to have you here. So I really appreciate you making the drive out to Tooele County tonight and hang out with me for an hour.
Well, thanks. My mother always wondered when I was going to get a real job.
No, this is a good gig.
Yeah, it is. My daughter was asked, so what does your dad do? My dad talks. He's a talker. So that's the way she saw it.
Well, you know, and we had a mutual friend that connected the two of us, Nathan Osmond. He says, you've got to have Bob on your show. And I really appreciate Nate for hooking us up so that we could have this discussion tonight, because as I've listened to some of your stuff, I realize you've got a lot of great insight that could help in what we do as a foundation and for people that are seeking help in certain areas of their lives. And so I'm grateful for you coming out tonight.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell me, focusing on mental health and suicide prevention, you've got some pretty good topics that lead right into that.
Well, yeah. I remember back in 2011, I had an event occur, and I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning with my first massive panic attack, and I didn't even know what it was. In fact, I find when I speak at a lot of schools, kids don't even know what depression is. And so I explain, there's this sadness in our head, and the sadness won't go away, or there's all this tightness in our tummy or in our chest, and it's hard to breathe. And so I explain it. Now, if any of that's happening, let's make sure that you go see one of the counselors here at the school, and just don't keep it to yourself. But I didn't know what to do, so I started going to one therapist after another, and I actually spent $40,000, $50,000 with a bunch of people that didn't help me. And my doctor goes, Bob, you're going to die. We've got to figure this out, because what happens when you're under stress, it releases all this cortisol, the stress hormone. And I was starting to have an arrhythmia. He goes, I can't believe you've lasted for 4 months. Bob, we've got to figure this out. And I said, I don't know where else to go.
Wow.
So he actually sent me to a psychiatrist who ran me through a bunch of tests and said, I think I can help you. I go, well, that's what everybody tells me. And I actually just didn't want to bother with them because I didn't like them. So I went to 2 more counselors that were really nice and everything. And I go, well, I don't think it's working. They go, why? Because I still have panic attacks and they're not going away. And so I thought, I need to go to the guy I can't stand. So I went back to him, and just prior to this, I was on stage with 30,000 people at the Georgia Dome. Went up right after Lou Holtz. And for whatever reason, when I'm standing on that stage, it all went away. Maybe because I was so focused, it just went away. And I go, I feel good up here. But when I walked off that stage, I would go curl up in the green room in a massive panic attack. And it wouldn't go away till I either played golf, played with baby birds, or walked up onto a stage again. But I remember one day after 4 months of these panic attacks that I went, I know why people end their life. I had no idea. It's not to end their life, it's to end the pain. I had no idea that emotional pain is greater than physical pain. I had a shoulder surgery once, horribly painful. I would take that any day over the pain that was going on up here.
Yeah. And did you mistake the panic attacks for something physically wrong with you, whether you were having heart problems or things like that? Did it appear that way, or did you?
You know what's interesting, when you're in having this trauma, emotionally, the blood leaves your frontal lobe and you can't even think. I was in a cloud. I walked in confusion, having no idea what to do. So I didn't even have a logical answer. I didn't know if it was physical, mental. I think I knew it was mental because I kept going to these professional psychiatrists, psychologists, and therapists, and voodoo doctors, and energy healers, and everybody says they can help you. It's like, I go, are you guys just trying to take advantage of people that are hurting? I read once that the greatest scam artist of all time said, "People will give you anything for what they hunger for."
Yeah.
And what I was hungering for was just to feel normal again.
Yeah. My dad used to tell me that they call it practicing medicine because they haven't got it right yet.
Oh.
No offense to the doctors, but so panic attacks are real. And one thing I've noticed is we're seeing the youth with higher levels of anxiety and kind of those same panic attacks. I see a lot of that in the youth today. And so it's kind of a scary thing that kids are going through things that are that, like you mentioned, severe.
Well, the last couple of years with the kids in schools, because I volunteer to go to schools for free. Last year I was at 50, 60 schools, mostly in Iowa and Canada. But I'll ask these kids this question. How many of you personally know somebody who's dealing with panic, anxiety, or depression? Almost every hand goes up. When I did it for the military, 1,400 airmen at McConnell Air Force Base, all the hands went up. When I do it at public arenas, like with Tony Robbins, and there's 10,000 people, almost all the hands go up, and then I say, and 25% of you are sitting in the room with me right now, and some of you are hiding it. Don't suffer silently. I mean, there's a stigma. And I thought there was a stigma. When I was in college, I was suffering depression, and I would sneak into the counseling service. I go, no, nobody's going to know that I was here, right? And I was scared to death somebody would find out because I thought it was going to ruin my career, or would ruin me ever getting married, all of that. And so, don't suffer silently. If you're going through that, man, get someone to help you.
And I think that happens a lot with the military. They're afraid to say, hey, this is what I'm going through, because they don't want to lose clearances. They don't want to lose, and that PTSD is a thing. I remember my father was an Army Ranger, and we ended up having him diagnosed with PTSD. It was something he did not want to have done because he didn't want to admit that there was anything going on. He was the tough guy. Didn't want to have any of that on his record. And so I think in the military, there's even that worry of, is anybody going to know?
Yeah.
Trying to keep that on the DL.
And yet I've got friends who are special forces during Vietnam. I have a friend who, in late 20s, who was a combat controller, special forces. And the older one said to the younger one, I thought I handled all that stuff from Vietnam. He goes, I'm crying in the middle of the day. I'm waking up with nightmares. So it's something that can impact you for a long time. And that's why we know so much more now, and there's people that can help.
Yeah, there is. And so we're always telling people, reach out. And I think a lot of people will go to a counselor. Maybe it's not the right counselor. They're not meshing. And so they give up and they quit. But we always tell people, if you find somebody and it's not the right one, just keep looking.
Oh, and the way you know it's not the right one, if you've been going to the same person for 3 months and nothing's changed, find someone else. I did it even quicker than that because I was getting to the point, at least the doctor that I didn't like, I go back to him and we had a breakthrough within 3 weeks. I mean, he got me to go to the root problem of my childhood where I'm sobbing uncontrollably, this cathartic sobbing, and I'm going, what's going on? And I saw the breakthrough.
Now, was that anything that you even remembered, or was it something that just came to you through the therapy?
Well, I remembered a lot of things that happened in my childhood, but it was kind of like one event, I just described it, and it was a real traumatic event between my mom and dad. And he said, pal, you just told me that like you were reading it out of a textbook with no emotion. I go, well, that's what happened. And then when I finally felt it, oh my gosh, that 8-year-old was horrified. But yeah, I could just look at it, but I never felt it.
Wow. And so, you and I talked yesterday a little bit about the ACEs study and the adverse childhood experiences. And I think the study that I've done on that, you realize that so much of that kind of goes unnoticed. It's below the radar. And then as we reach our 30s and our 40s, some of that stuff comes to the surface.
Or during a crisis.
Yeah, or during a crisis.
Typically during a crisis, you're going to have all these emotions come up, and it's not the stuff that's happening around you that's causing it. It's those. One guy described it, Michael Singer. He says, "Imagine you've got thorns in your heart, and you're going to do everything you can to avoid anybody touching those little thorns. Well, the thorn's there. So if you remove the thorn, it passes through you. So that which used to make you angry or triggered you in the past, it doesn't trigger you anymore because the thorn's been removed or healed or you processed it. A trauma is an unprocessed event in your life."
Wow, I like that. Not that I like that, but I like how you describe that. You know, what would you tell somebody today that's dealing with having this come to the surface that maybe refuses to get help?
Well, what you can do is there is an article by something Gray. I can't think of his first name. It's called How to Release Repressed Anger. And it's basically, if you feel angry, be angry. Now, not at another person or in a situation, but what I would do, basically, if something came up that triggered me back then, I'd walk into my room and I'd start pounding on the bed and I'd start screaming. Now, my family understood what was going on because my psychiatrist actually taught me to do this, to feel your emotion in a safe place. And then anger is a secondary emotion covering pain. So if I'm angry, I'm in pain. In fact, if I saw you angry, I have compassion. I go, "Oh, you're in pain," and I wouldn't, I'm not triggered anymore by somebody being like that. So what I did for 4 months was I released all that repressed rage from my childhood up until about 25 years old. And after 4 months, I mean, my gosh, my kids say, "Dad, nothing triggers you anymore. You never get angry about anything anymore." So that stuff can be healed. Same with grief, things that made you sad, that triggered sadness when you were younger. However, if it becomes overwhelming and you're feeling depression, I mean, that's why I had a doctor, a professional, helping me through that process, because one of the things he would ask me is, "Are you thinking of hurting yourself?" And that's an important question to even ask our kids. Like some of these kids in the schools, they'd come walking up afterwards because I invited them to, one at a time. And if I saw tears in their eyes or they were really upset, I'd go, "Are you thinking of hurting yourself?" And some of the kids will go, "Uh-huh." And then I go, "Do you have a plan?" And sometimes the kids go, "Yeah, I was thinking of hanging myself." And then I said, "Can we walk over to the counselor right now? Because we got to make sure that you're safe." And almost every single time they go, "Okay." And, sometimes those are important questions to ask each other when somebody's going through a lot of yuck.
And one thing that I've noticed in doing that, I get the opportunity more often than not to have those discussions, but there's something interesting that I generally won't say hurting yourself. I'll throw it straight out at them, say, "Are you thinking about suicide?" And it's interesting because so many of them are trying to keep this secret, that their body is just tense. And when you say that directly to them, it's almost like you see their shoulders relax, like the secret's out. I don't have to keep this hidden any longer. And I find that it's just really interesting because there's so much work in trying to keep that hidden. And nobody necessarily wants to die. They want the pain to end, like you had mentioned, and they're weighing their options of how do you get through this, whatever the situation is. It might be something that's huge and difficult, or maybe something that doesn't even seem, we look at the youth and it could be a breakup, and as adults we're going, "Oh, that's nothing." But it's interesting to see that body language change once that pressure comes off of trying to keep that under wraps,
We may have talked about this yesterday, but Dr. Hudnall, who's a teen suicide expert in our state, this hit me right between the eyes when he told me the story about a young man who tried to end his life, and he would go interview them at the hospital afterwards. And he said, "So what was going on?" And this young man, 17 years old, goes, "Well, my girlfriend broke up with me on Thursday. I thought if I killed myself on Friday, she would miss me all weekend and we could get back together on Monday." The point is, the child brain under 25 years old, when they're under extreme trauma or stress, they don't think logically, they don't think clearly. One kid said, "I saw a giant vacuum cleaner outside the window and it was sucking me out of the window. It was pulling me right up." Another guy told me, "I was being pulled toward the end of the cliff and I was..." So that's when a child under 25 years old, we take that seriously. In fact, I tell my kids, if somebody ever says they have a plan, you surround them and you don't let them out of your sight for a second until you get them in front of an adult or over to the emergency room.
Yeah, make that handoff to somebody that's actually able to make that huge difference, that life-changing difference. That's amazing. Now, tell me, as far as youth go, what are you seeing the biggest change? I mean, are you seeing a trend that's...
Oh, yeah, the trend has been since 2007, I believe, when electronics, the smartphone came out. And they've directly linked this now. This isn't theory anymore. It's when in 2007, the suicide rate started going up, the anxiety started going up, the depression started going up because electronics. In fact, I want to read you something from the former president of Facebook. He said, how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? And that means we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and it's going to get you more likes and comments. It's a social validation feedback loop, exactly the kind of thing a hacker like myself would come up with because you're exploiting vulnerability in human psychology. Wow. They're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's called a intermediate variable reward. It's like a slot machine. A slot machine, you don't win. I won. Dopamine hit, right?
Yeah.
I don't win, maybe 30 times. I won. And that's how you get hooked into or addicted to something. Well, what happens on Facebook or Instagram? You're scrolling. Nothing. Kitty! Nothing. Oh, look at this. Nothing. Hey, he liked it.
Yeah.
They said the Facebook like and the scroll down, the guys who invented it, who are now whistleblowers, they were on 60 Minutes. They said, we didn't understand the damage that we are causing. In fact, the guy from Facebook said, God only knows what it's doing to our children. Well, now they know what it's doing to our children. It changes their brain chemistry. Their brain doesn't develop it like it should. I mean, I've got this one article from Psychology Today that says smartphones are making our children lazy, crazy, moody, crazy, and lazy.
Wow.
And I'll ask the kids in the schools, how many of you think that might be true? And they all raise their hands. And I go, yeah, you're using yours because kids can't self-regulate themselves. Yeah. It's like, I like Simon Sinek, he said, it's like handing your kid a bottle of whiskey at 13 years old and go, now control yourself. And kids can't control, there's some adults that can't self-regulate and control themselves because they're so addicted. There was another article, 69% of parents, they were talking about the parents and smartphone addiction. And so I asked the kids in the schools, I said, no, it's not your parents' fault. I mean, I was addicted to my smartphone too, but I said, how many of you have parents that are ignoring you on a regular basis? And all the kids' hands go up, almost all of them. Should I tell a story about the kid I bring on stage?
Yeah, I'd love it.
All right, so I'll ask one of the kids in the audience, can I have a volunteer? And one of the kids walks up and I said, I want you to pretend I'm your dad. And you want to tell me about something that happened in school today. So the kid comes up and he says, Dad, hold on a second. Dad, wait, what's going on? Well, Dad, something really cool happened today. I said, how does that make you feel? Usually the girls will say, this makes me feel really sad. The boys, one of them said, I feel like I want to smack you. I said, walk up on stage again. Pretend, take two. I want you to tell me something cool that happened at school. Kid walks up on the stage. Hey, Dad, hold on a second. And I look them right in the eyes and I go, what's going on? And then they tell me. And I get down at their eye level. Tiger Woods talked about this. He said, every time I asked my dad a question, he got down at my eye level, looked me right in the eyes, and listened. So after they talked for about 20, 30 seconds, the kid on stage, I go, how does that make you feel? And they all say, that makes me feel really good. I said, you know why? Because the most important person on the planet is the one who's right in front of you. Imagine if we did that with every person we met, whether it's business, our spouses. I mean, that would start changing the dynamics of the direction where we're going of getting disconnected from everyone.
Well, you know, and as you said that, I thought back to my being the teen, my being a teenager, living in my house, and something that was very common in my growing up, and probably in yours as well, was family dinner. You sat around a kitchen table, you ate dinner together. There were no smartphones, so you talked to each other. I'll have, and now I've got two of my kids are married, and two of them are just, you know, one's in college and one's just about out of the house. And when we sit together, and we actually have, and that's happened since COVID. Usually we're sitting around a table at a restaurant, but now we're at home a little bit more. You're sitting around, everybody's doing their deal. Everybody's scrolling on their phone, and there's less conversation. We'll sit in the living room and have, my family's got 13 people in it now with grandkids and things, and we'll be sitting around, and it's funny, if you pan the room, almost everybody's on their devices. And so the landscape's changed a ton.
That was what was going on in my family, but I educated all of them. I took them all through all of this, and it took a little while because of bias. I don't want to know that what I'm doing isn't good for me, like smoking. Don't tell me smoking's bad for me, and I don't want to hear it. In fact, there was a study somewhere where the lady lived to 102 years old and she smoked every day, and I go, well, she's an outlier. That's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Let's look at the bell curve. What's happening the most?
Yeah. They're not all George Burns.
So my daughter, at 18 years old, was with one of her friends, and she said, put that phone down, look me in the eye, and let's have a conversation. And so she's teaching her friends, and it's one person at a time. Awareness is the first thing. I mean, there was a little boy who sat next to me at a baseball game. It was a softball game my son was in, and he's up there just looking at his phone for about 10 minutes playing some game. And his mother called him down to the front row, and I said, and then as he's walking down, I asked permission. I go, hey, can I tell you what smartphones might be doing to our children's brains? I asked permission. She said, well, yeah. And I showed her that one article about screen time makes our kids moody, crazy, and lazy. She goes, that's my 3-year-old. And she took the phone away, and I go, no, you don't want to cold turkey the kid. The kid went nuts. For 15, 20 minutes, he was on his back, screaming, kicking his legs. His father came off the field and says, what's going on? She goes, I took his phone away. He goes, about time. After 20 minutes, the kid calmed down, and they went playing with all the other kids. I looked over to the side, and there was a lady there with her 2 little girls, and they're all looking at their phones. And she looks over at me, and she goes, I guess I'm just a bad mother.
Wow.
See, when we're addicted, it hampers our judgment. She didn't want to hear that.
And do you think this type of addiction would be kind of in that same circle with, heroin and alcohol and pornography, whatever the different addictions are? Do you think this is right up there with those?
Oh, it definitely is.
And it has effects that I think are just as harsh as the others.
In fact, I've got a few test questions here to see if you might be addicted to your smartphone. I'm anxious when I'm separated from my smartphone or electronic for an extended period of time. I engage in arguments with friends and family about electronics. When I'm not checking my smartphone, I fear missing out with what's going on. I lose track of time on my smartphone. Another one is, do you look at your smartphone just before you go to bed? And is it in bed with you? And it's the first thing you look at before you even get out of bed. Yeah. Do you find yourself wandering around the house from room to room with holding this thing?
Yeah.
So there's ways to start getting unaddicted if you, number one, could say, yeah, this is a problem.
Mm-hmm. And just cut it back a little bit. Not cold turkey, like you said, but kind of cut it back. So what are some of the ways?
Well, one of the things I did was, at first I put it on black and white. It's what is it called? It's been a long time. Grayscale. Put it on grayscale. So that helps get kids unaddicted. It's not as interesting anymore. And so you just start lowering the amount of time that they have on it. If you as an adult, you might go, I'm going to go 15 minutes without looking at that phone. And then put a timer on it, then spend 1 minute and just check what I think is important. Then go to 30 minutes and go to an hour. Never take it into your bedroom. Don't take it into the bathroom. If you get in your car, throw it in the trunk. Those are some of the things you can do. So it got to a point where, I left my smartphone home. Oh, well, I'll see it in a couple hours when I get back. And you also tell your friends, neighbors, and relatives that I'm only looking at it maybe twice a day so that they're aware that you're not ignoring them.
I'll tell you, the big eye-opener for me was with Apple, with iPhone. Weekly, it tells you your screen time. And I'm going, really? I was on it that much? So it's kind of scary when you start seeing those numbers and it'll come up and it'll be like, hey, your screen time was down this week by such and such %. And you're like, wow, good. But they're doing a few things like that. But like you said, so many of the things are to keep you sucked in and keep you rolling. And
there's a direct correlation between, especially teenagers that are on their screens more than 6 hours a day. Especially girls, and depression. So yeah, and then there's the adults that go, I don't have time to do that, and they're on their phone 6 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Well, you might have more time. My son-in-law, who was going to law school, he said, I couldn't have gone through law school if I had that phone around. I just turned it off.
Yeah. Well, and one thing with social media that I notice is Growing up, I was in the neighborhood. The neighborhood all was pretty much financially in about the same situation, right? Because we all lived in the same neighborhood, and there were those that maybe had a boat or something more than we had, but you had this small group of people that you could compare your life to. And with social media, it doesn't matter when you're turning it on. You're seeing somebody on some elaborate vacation and thinking, wow, how do these people have money and time to do all of these things? Before COVID-19, you saw a lot of it. But I think there's a lot of comparison that goes on. And I think for the girls especially, that's difficult.
So there's two parts to it. If you compare yourself to someone else, you're trying to put them above you or below you, and both of them are damaging to compare yourself to anyone else. I found this great, in fact, I did a 1 minute with Bob on this. On my Instagram, Bob Memory, I've got 160 1 minute
I watched
with
a few of those.
And then I stopped doing it for a while, and they said, why? I said, well, because I'm trying to get everybody off social media, and then I realized, well, I'm putting content on here that's positive, and it helps me to have followers. I was at a school 4 years ago, and a kid on the front row goes, "You're nobody." I go, "What do you mean? You're not on Instagram. You don't have a following. You're nobody." I go, "Well, I've spoken to 5 million people all over the world." "No, you didn't. If you did, you would have been on Instagram." I go, "Are you serious?" So I got an account, Bob Memory, on Instagram, and I started asking my public audiences, like a few thousand people, guys, if you can, follow me on Instagram, Bob Memory, because it'll give me a number, because schools judge me and the kids judge me as being good or not good based on how many followers I have. So a few years later, I'm at that same school. I got like 10,000 followers, and I go, "Hey, check out Bob Memory. You have 10,000 followers. Wow, this is really good." I said, "Well, what if I had 3 followers?" "Oh, that would be really bad." "Well, not bad. It just means you don't know anybody." And I go, "You think I know 10,000 people?" And I tell these kids, you have put your personal worth based on a following. Guys, you're of great worth. And you're being hoodwinked into thinking that you have to have a showing on Instagram to be accepted. But I've got this great thing on comparing. If we compare ourselves and conclude we are less than someone else, we feel depleted and depressed, and we want to withdraw. You ever see that?
Yep.
And hide. Get away from others. We get away from others so they won't see us as unlovable or incapable as we see ourselves, and the human connection, which we need so badly because we're humans, it feels severed and we're alone and self-exiled. Now, the other problem is, what if we compare ourselves and conclude, I'm better than that person? Well, then we feel superior, contemptuous, and dismissive. We may not want a connection with someone so beneath us. Again, the cord of human connectedness feels sliced, and we are once again alone in our superiority.
And that, the last part that you just read, makes me think about, we're seeing bullying happen online. It used to be if you were bullied at school, you'd go home and it ended once you were within the walls of your home, right? You had people there that unconditionally loved you, hopefully, and you could leave that until the next day when you'd have to go back to school and face the bully. But now the bullying can continue on 24/7, 365 days a year. And there's something, I think, in our minds that makes us believe the way that we look better to the world is by tearing other people down. When I think, in fact, it's the opposite. You'll never look better than when you're trying to help somebody, when you're lifting them up. But in our mind, I think that's why we see a lot of bullying, is because it's somebody that's got a low self-esteem being the bully that is trying to make themselves look better.
Yeah, bullying comes from insecurity.
Yeah.
But I learned another thing about bullying. I knew a few bullies when I was in high school, and I've talked to a number of bullies at some of these places I've been, and those kids' lives were horrifying. Yeah. They were emotionally, physically, or sexually abused. And once again, a compassion. So I'm talking to the kids, I go, that bully, you have no idea what's going on in his home. If you could look at him with compassion, at least understanding, and try to stay safe and away from him. But I look at a bully and I just go, my gosh, what has happened in his life that he's acting out like this?
Yeah, 100%.
I got into it's interesting understanding that concept of anger, and when somebody's angry, they're hurting inside. I got into a cab a few years ago with a friend who's known me for 15 years, and I told the guy where we're going, and he hit the gas like we were in the Daytona 500. And so I leaned forward and I said, "Sir, I was in a rollover last year. Could we go a little slower?" Well, he got triggered. hit the brake, slammed his hands onto the steering wheel, stops in the middle of the road, goes, "Hey, it's been a year, you should be over it." My friend goes like this, and I start leaning forward, because in my mind I go, he's in pain. And he's sitting there yelling at me and yelling, and he stops, and I go, "Is there more?" "Yeah, there's more." And so he's yelling and yelling, and then he finally went like this. See, the blood just came back to his frontal lobe. When someone's angry and the blood leaves your frontal lobe, you will say and do things you normally wouldn't say or do. So when he finally calmed down, I said, "You're probably right." I said, "But my nerves are shot. Is there any way we could go slower?" And he went, "Oh, okay." Then he became my best friend all the way to the hotel. But here's the interesting part. When we got out of the car, my friend looked at me and says, "Bob, what's with you?" And I go, "What?" "Bob, 2 or 3 years ago, you would have ripped his head off. I've seen you break all the clubs in your bag. Where's all that rage? Where's all that anger?" I go, "Well, one, I healed the rage and anger, and two, I now have a new understanding of compassion for people that are in pain. I just needed to wait till he calmed down."
Isn't that wild? I mean, nobody thinks that way. I mean, it's, again, kind of the opposite of the way that, as a human, we think. So I like that you point that out.
Well, I just that part about angry, I'll ask the kids, "Hey, well, let me ask you, can somebody make you mad?" Almost everybody goes, "Well, yeah," because television teaches that. Or parents go, "You made me mad." And they're trying to make you responsible for their feelings. And I go, "Well, I asked 500 psychologists, can someone make you mad?" Nobody raises their hand, because they know you change the language. It's, "I feel triggered." There was a psychologist in the Air Force said, "Yeah, one of the guys came in and said, 'My wife makes me so mad.'" She goes, "Wow, doesn't she have great power? Why don't we hand her a remote control, because she controls your life?" It's like the little boy who says to his mom, "Mommy, where are all the stupid idiot drivers today?" "They only come out when your father's driving." If you leave the house angry, you're going to try to blame something out there for the anger that's inside. And we see that going on all over the world, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to blame someone else for the anger. If somebody's angry and you hear them on TV and they're angry, let's look at their childhood. What did they go through when they were growing up? And these triggers are hitting them, and they've been taught to blame someone out there, that if I change everybody and everything out there, I'll feel better. That's an impossible task. There's only one person you can change, and it's you. And by the way, when you change you, people notice, and there's like a little rippling effect that starts to happen, because there's no such thing as a small act of kindness. Each act creates a ripple with no logical end.
Yeah, it just keeps going. So what do you think the answer is as far as suicide prevention and our kids today?
Number one, it begins with awareness, and it would be really nice if we could teach everybody who decided to have a child, how. Just if you yell at your child, you have no idea. Maybe they can handle it. Yeah. Maybe you are like me. It sinks into my brain, and I suppress it, and it impacts me for the rest of my life. So parents being aware of what they might be doing to their children, teach them how to be a good parent. The kids, they're kids. You can start teaching them some things, but the electronics, it's like, if there's any way to reverse that, where it becomes a tool instead of the kids, that's their connection. We need human connection. This is electronic connection.
It doesn't have the same effect.
And this is, it's damaging their brain. It's damaging our connectedness. Everybody's getting more and more polarized. They have algorithms. If you're conservative, you're going to get to see more conservative information that will make your bias be deeper, and you won't listen to the other side. And it's happening on both sides, whether you're conservative or liberal. And so we're seeing more and more contention in our entire country and in our families. So that's kind of where I'd start.
Just keeps it more divided and more divided. And yeah, the algorithms that you talk about. We went to a shoe store the other day. I got on Facebook, and it's showing me ads for shoes, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You look at something on Amazon, next thing you know, on Facebook, it's going to be trying to get you to buy it. And I'm like, you guys are a day late. I bought it when I looked at it the first time. But it's interesting, because they've really dialed this whole thing in to try to just keep you on there. And, I've got a daughter, and she's on TikTok and looking at TikTok, and TikTok is a Chinese company, and they're talking about trying to ban it here and things. But I laugh about TikTok, because if you get on TikTok, the time just goes. I mean, it's TikToking away, and you're just one after another watching the TikTok videos.
Dopamine.
Yep.
There's another thing with getting unaddicted from these, turning all the alerts off, all the notifications off. Because every time you get a notification, you get a hit of cortisol. They did that on purpose. So you get stressed out until I look at it. The guy in 60 Minutes, they hooked him up to a biofeedback machine, and then they sent a ding to his phone, and this little blue thing shot up, and he goes, well, what's that? That's your cortisol level that just increased.
Really?
You will feel uncomfortable till you pick this up, and then you get a hit of dopamine. And I like what one neuroscientist said, we have 15th century brains with 21st century technology. It's overloaded. We can't handle it. And when it gets overloaded, it's like a hair dryer. What happens when it's overloaded? It shuts down. Yeah. So our brain will look like a Christmas tree, and then it'll shut down, and that's what depression looks like in our brain.
Yeah, everything goes dark on the scans. So what's the best way to get our kids to realize that we got to cut back?
They're not going to realize it. You just have to be the adult and start down that road and, try to educate. The problem with parenting is by the time you're experienced, you're unemployed.
Yeah.
So I don't have all the answers to that, but just the awareness. I start with the awareness of letting adults know, and there's a group that's going to do something about it. And there's a group that's going to go, just like if I'm smoking cigarettes, kids, you shouldn't smoke. I mean, we've got a model. So my kids saw me get unaddicted from this. And they saw me go through mental health and dealing with panic attacks and sobbing uncontrollably and going through depression. And this was one of the keys. I have to get off this. My daughter came to me one day and says, Dad, could you get me a flip phone? I said, why? I don't know why, Dad, but it's depressing me and it makes me feel anxious and I'm comparing myself to, she's telling me, and that's how I even learned about all this. She woke me up to it.
That's amazing. And she was how old?
She was 17 at the time.
17. Yeah, that's the anomaly, right? Because most of them are wanting the next iPhone or the next, whatever, get the latest and the greatest, and so to stare away from it.
There's no adults that do that, are there?
Nope. not one of them. But yeah, as parents, I think we need to lead the way by showing that it's okay to set it down. And you and I talked earlier, and it's something I need to work on for sure because I'm on it a lot.
The other part is the blue light glasses.
Yeah, tell us about those.
Now, 3 years ago, I asked everybody, has anybody ever heard of blue light glasses? And nobody would raise their hand. Now, a lot of people raise their hand. I go, how many of you have blue light glasses? My doctor has it. My psychiatrist has it. A lot of professionals I know now have it, and a lot of kids are starting to get these. The blue light that comes off of your electronics, whether it's your TV, your computer, your iPad, your iPhone, it damages the brain, and it winds you up inside. It causes headaches. It dries out our eyes. You'll have eye damage if you use it long enough. There's people that complain of intestinal problems. In fact, a lot of kids in schools, nurses know this now. If a kid comes on with a tummy ache on a regular basis, they might be on their electronics too much. So a couple things you can do. There are settings on the computer to, dummy that down, but they're all suggesting if you're going to look at computers on a regular basis, Intel Corporation in Arizona, they took out all their screens of the entire company. They replaced them with screens that have that cover built into it, and they actually have something watching your eyes. And if you're on that computer too long, the computer shuts down, they go, look outside.
Really?
They make you do it because they know that their health, that the health got better. Their interaction, they're not as irritated, and the fighting goes down.
Wow, that is amazing. And you can get those.
You can get them on Amazon. You can walk into Best Buy. They have them. They're called gaming glasses or blue light filter glasses. I wouldn't let all my kids don't even look at computers anymore unless they got them on because they finally got it. They fought me on it for a while. I show them all of the data and hey, here, this is from Harvard Medical School. And then you see what you want to see.
I'm going to get me a pair tonight. I'm gonna order some in because it's amazing, and I didn't know they existed until I heard it from you.
Well, at the Air Force, these guys that I was speaking to, they were drone pilots and they were intelligence. I said, you guys are all looking at your computers all day. Go get these. And I said, some of you are going home at night and playing games. No, you got to give your brain time to rest. When you're looking at your computer, it's burning glucose in your brain. You are not resting at night looking at your TV before you go to bed. In fact, it's winding you up, and a lot of people have trouble with sleep. Sleep is the number 2 complaint to doctors in our country now. I can't understand why I can't get to sleep. Are you watching TV? Are you looking at your computer or your iPhone before you go to bed? And, well, yeah. You know what? When the sun goes down at night, what color does it turn to? Amber.
Yeah.
The blue goes away. The blue wakes us up. It's the amber that puts all the animals, including us, to sleep.
Yeah, kind of soothing, has a soothing effect. That's interesting. I can't wait to try them. I really am excited about that. So what do you think the trick is I'm asking y'all these out of the ballpark questions, but what do you think the trick is to get our kids to realize that they need more human connection?
Start giving it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, listening is one of the, this is really interesting. When I healed my childhood trauma, there's a book called Lost Connections that validates my entire journey. It was a bestseller just 2 years ago, Lost Connections. And it says why we are dealing with depression and anxiety. We lost our connection to our childhood trauma. We lost our connection to other people. We're not talking to each other and looking in each other's eyes. We lost our connection to nature. People in cities have a lot more mental illness than people who live out in the country or getting outside. Connection to work that is of value. So with kids, and I did this with my kids, I said, hey, I'm going to teach you a little bit about listening. In fact, let me walk you through it, okay? I do this with the kids in the schools. Have you ever noticed that when somebody's talking to you, you're already thinking about what you're going to say next? Mm-hmm. If you're holding a thought in your head, just waiting for me to shut up so you can jump in, we don't have a connection. It's not there. Have you ever noticed that there's a lot of people that one up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like you did this. Well, yeah, my vacation was way better. I did this. Well, yeah, 3 years ago, yeah, that's human connection. And this is the big one. Excuse me. Judgment. Judging is a connection killer. And I didn't get that till one day I walked in and said to my 30-year-old, hey, you want to go to a movie? He goes, Dad, I can't go to a movie with you. I said, how come? Dad, when I was a little boy, there was something inappropriate on TV, and you were so religious and everything. You walked in, we don't watch stuff like that in this house. And he said, Dad, to this day, when you walk in the house, if the TV's on, my whole body gets into a knot, and I look over and I'm scared to death you're behind me. Well, he's got a little trauma he's going to have to take care of, and I said, darn it. But I said this to him. I said, how come you've never told me that before? He goes, Dad, I don't know what's going on with you, but you just accept and love everybody now. You don't judge. Dad, when I was a little boy, the way you judged other people for not being spiritual enough or rich enough, I didn't feel safe to tell you anything. And at that moment, I realized not only is the person that I'm talking to, if I judge you, well, I was in an audience and I said to a guy in the front row, if you started telling me a story and I said, yeah, that's stupid, would you tell me anything after that? He goes, nope. Neither would the other 5,000 people around you who just saw me judge you. I shut down everybody who saw that I'm judgmental. So what if we could just sit with another human being and just be there, just to be there for them? And women are way better than this. Mm-hmm. You know, we're trying to fix them. Well, I've got a solution. I can't wait you to shut up. I'm going to make that all better. And all they want is to just... And the important thing is looking into their eyes. So I do a demonstration where I go left eye, and I just have us both focus on our left eyes. And you could try this with somebody that you feel really safe with. Well, a couple of things happen. There's a connection that you just start to feel after about 2 or 3 minutes or 2 or 3 questions. I had a former NFL football player who was like a mosquito on cocaine. He was bouncing around, talking 400 miles an hour. And we started doing this. And he goes, oh, I can't do it. I go, why not? He said, I've got too much pain behind my eyes. I said, well, then we don't need to, because I never force anyone to do it if they don't want to. Mm-hmm. He goes, no, I'm going to hang in there. After 15 minutes, he goes, dude, you're blowing my mind. My thinking is slowed down. It's never done this before. And he felt emotion, and there's that connection. And what's interesting is I'll ask the audience, how many of you feel our connection up here? And most of the audience will raise their hands. So that's where I would start, getting connected to other people. When I fixed my childhood trauma, I tried all kinds of things to get rid of an anxiety that seemed to linger. So I tried positivity, I tried gratitude, I tried happiness, I tried service. I became the most positive, grateful, happy, service-oriented, affirmative, tapping, anxious person every single day. And then I met somebody who really gave me some insight. His name was James Hadlock. And I met him, and he goes, Bob, let me see if I get this straight. Let me guess. You like to stay busy, don't you? I go, well, yeah. He goes, you hate boredom, don't you? Yeah, I hate boredom. Bob, you're addicted to busy. That's your addiction. Some people drink, some people take drugs, some people, do all kinds of things to push away their pain. You use busy. He goes, look it up. Busy's an addiction. He said, it didn't work, did it? I go, He said, I'll tell you what you did next. You thought if I reframe, I'll feel better. I said, what do you mean? Well, you got really good. You took all your negative thoughts and made them positive, and you're unhappy to happy and ungrateful to grateful. He said, it's a lot of work, isn't it? Didn't work, did it? I go, no. He said, I'll tell you what you did next. Let me guess. You thought if I serve enough people, I will feel better. He goes, Bob, if you are serving others to feel better, you're going to burn out if you haven't already. And I'd already burned out. He goes, if you feel inspired to serve, wonderful, but you're doing it to run away from your pain. And so I said, so what do you got? Because I used to talk a lot like that. He goes, I'm going to teach you how to get connected to other people through the listening. I'm going to teach you reflection, getting connected to yourself instead of blaming others for how you feel. I'm going to teach you to always look within. I'm going to teach you how to get connected to nature. And after 8 months, I watched all my anxiety disappear for the first time in my whole life.
That's wild. Now, backing up to the eye thing, kind of what's the science behind that? I mean, how did that come up? I mean, is it something you studied or something you discovered on your own, or?
No, my coach just said, Bob, we're going to have a conversation. You'll probably notice I'm looking into your eyes. In fact, I want you to do something for me. Mm-hmm. Every time you meet somebody new, like in business or whatever, this is how it would be. We meet for the first time. John, you're going to notice that while we're talking, I'm going to be looking into your eyes the whole time. If it feels uncomfortable, let me know, but this is what I'm doing to work on my anxiety. If it's okay with you. And nobody ever said, no, don't do that anymore. They might look away once in a while. But something interesting happened. They would tell me almost without fail, I just told you things I've never told anyone else because I just trust you. And so it builds trust very quickly if you're a trustworthy type of person. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I learned this one little thing, this is one of the more wonderful experiences of my life. He says, Bob, I want you to go have a discussion for 30 minutes with someone you think is superior to you and somebody who you think is inferior to you. So I walked into the president of New York Life because I just met him for the first time. Somebody introduced me to him. I'm in his beautiful office, and I said, hey, I'm working on my anxiety. My coach wants me to have a 30-minute discussion, and since we're going to be talking up, can we look into each other's eyes the whole time? Guy was awesome. Sure. So then I walked out onto the street, and I saw someone who was homeless, a vet. And I sat down on the street across from him, and I said, I'm working on my anxiety. Could you have a 30-minute just talk with me, just looking into my eyes? And this guy was just wonderful. He goes, sure, anything. And then I called my coach and I said, hey, Bob, what did you learn? I go, there is no one who's superior or inferior to me. We're all made of the same stuff, this divinity, this, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? He goes, you needed to see it for yourself. And by the way, Bob, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it changed the world. I go, wow. If everybody could see our connection and that we're all in this together, everything starts to change.
Yeah, and I was always that guy that looked into somebody's eyes when I talked to them. And I'd have people say that. I remember having a teacher, somebody say to me, I think people like it because you look them in the eye when you're talking to them. And it's like, I just always did, you know. And so that's interesting. And it lowered the anxiety. I mean, something you could feel immediately.
Well, it wasn't immediately. Well, actually, when I was connected to another person, right. it would diminish it. Yeah, I would feel calmer. But in doing that over a period of time, these different things of getting connected to others, myself, and nature, etc. Yeah, one day in my journal, because I've kept a journal for many years, for the first time in 2017, I go, I'm not writing down that I feel anxiety today. This is amazing. So.
And in 2017, you'd had like 6 years of some anxiety.
Well, massive anxiety. Yeah, but
earlier in life, had you had anxiety as well?
Earlier in life, I started reading my journals from years ago. I go, have I ever been happy? If things were going good, I was up here. If things weren't going good, I was down here. So I worried. I worried all the time. And then in this process, if you handled your childhood trauma, I learned how to stop worrying. Completely, because I learned about what would you experience without that story or without that movie. Byron Katie talks all about this. And would you like to hear an example of that?
Yeah, I'd love
it. The one I have in my TEDx talk is there was a guilt. Well, first of all of your emotions come from thoughts. Mm-hmm. And most of your thoughts, I like what one guy said, 99% of our thoughts are nothing but a waste of time, and they do nothing but freak us out.
True.
So I had this young lady, she's a junior in high school, and I told her that. She goes, what do you mean our thoughts aren't real? I said, close your eyes. Picture a spider crawling across your face. She went like this. Oh. I said, are you feeling something? Well, yeah, that freaked me out. Is there a spider on your face? She goes, well, no. So you just had a thought, and it's not
real.
And she said, real. I said, did you ever go to a scary movie and it's freaking you out? And then you remember that it's not.
It's just a
It's
movie.
not really, yeah. Well, our life is like that if we're projected to the future. So I said, so what's going on that you're worrying this week? Oh, we have a soccer game on Saturday. I can't sleep at night. I just can't eat. Why? Well, I'm afraid I'm going to fall down. I'm afraid the coach is going to yell at me. I'm afraid we're going to lose and not go to state. I said, okay, well, can I ask you something? Are you currently playing soccer on Saturday? Let me remind you, it's Tuesday. We're sitting here. And she went, what? Are you currently playing soccer right now? Well, no. Well, did you fall down on Saturday? Well, no, not yet. Well, did you fall down on Saturday? No. Did the coach yell at you on Saturday? No. Did you guys lose the game? She goes, well, no. Would you agree with me? You're playing a movie in your head. You're the only one who can see it, and it's not
Real.
And she got it. I said, okay, so you want to freak out again? I want you to close your eyes. And it's soccer. You're playing. It's Saturday. You fell down. The coach is screaming at you. You're in the newspaper for blowing the game. How does that make you feel? She goes, it feels horrible. I said, okay, here are the words that changed everything for me. What would you experience right now in this moment without that movie playing in your head? That's not even real. Wake up from the nightmare. Be right here, right now. What would you feel? And she looked at her dad and said, Dad, I could be happy. Oh my gosh, it's not real. And she got all excited, and she got it in a moment. Kids get it way quicker than adults. I had 50 years of programming where I had to keep catching myself. What would I experience without that movie? I'd be at peace. And I put Post-its all over my house, all over my car, because I got it. And I wanted to rewire my brain. And then one day, I'm not going there anymore. It's gone. Somebody would say, are you excited about speaking tomorrow? Well, no. Why? Because I'm not there. I'm here right now. Are you worried about speaking tomorrow? Well, no. Why? Because I'm here right now. Are you worried that you may never speak again because of COVID? Well, no. Why? Because I'm in this beautiful home, and by the way, it is a beautiful home, and I'm having this discussion with you right now, and you know what? Maybe I'm not speaking, but you changed one person's life. How many did you change? Who knows? Yeah. I'm here right now. I'm in heaven, except for, like Byron Katie says, you're in heaven right now if everything's going well, except for the thought that kicks you out of heaven. So a few minutes later, I said to this young lady, when you're feeling this yuck in here, or maybe here, and you're all tensing about something in the future or the past, it's coming from a thought and it's not real. Now, there was one exception to this. If you're suffering from PTSD, like I did, if a movie's playing in your head, whether you like it or not, or you're having nightmares, it's real to you, and that's why you need therapy. This is something that will really help you after that's taken care of. So important to understand that. Back to the young lady. She started getting angry. I go, why are you mad? You know what my sister said to me 2 days ago? And then she started laughing all by herself, a 17-year-old laughing. I go, why are you laughing? It's over. The only way for me to be happy is to play the movie in my head from 2 days ago. Oh my gosh. And she's running around her high school telling everybody, thoughts aren't real. Now the kids don't get it yet, but she got it.
That's wild. I used to play a trick on myself because I worked for a time. I worked out at Dugway Proving Grounds, and you worked Monday through Thursday. You had a 3-day weekend, and it's really difficult after having a 3-day weekend to go back to having a 2-day weekend. And so I'd play these tricks in my mind, and I'll need a psychologist after this. But I'd play these tricks in my mind. I'd wake up on Saturday morning and tell myself it's Sunday morning, because then when it was Sunday morning, I felt like I got a bonus day. Made me think of that. But yeah, it's amazing. We spend so much time on things that we can't control.
Well, the reason last year around March, my daughter asked me a question. She goes, well, Dad, would anything derail you emotionally again? I go, I don't know. I can't see the future. Well, in the next 3 months, we lost a member of our family. And instead of it crushing me, it didn't. I just felt love for that individual. I found out I had bladder cancer. And the doctor said, yeah, Bob, it's the size of a golf ball. When we operate in 2 weeks, we'll find out if you're going to live. We'll find out if we need to remove your bladder, or we'll find out that you have a 95% chance of living the next 5 years. So I went, oh. And for the next 2 weeks, I almost forgot all about it because I wasn't projecting into the future. I was just wherever I was. So when I was on the operating table, just before they put me under, he's looking at the anesthesiologist, and he looks at me and he goes, Bob, your heart rate is 60, your blood pressure is normal. Are you worried about the outcome at all? I go, no, why? How are you guys doing? Did everybody get lunch? Is everybody happy? I want everybody happy if you're going to operate. And that's when I saw for a fact during that 2-week period, everything's changed, because I was the worrywart of everything. I mean, I had plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, all the way through the alphabet. Well, what if this doesn't work? Well, we could do this. And that worry, once again, it lowers your immune system.
Yeah.
It releases cortisol. So life is better. I used to have to get massages all the time. Don't need them anymore because I'm not like this all day anymore.
Yeah. And those thoughts are powerful. The things that we tell ourselves are powerful. I in fact, a week ago, I was doing an interview for the podcast, and we had a young lady that is part of the Tooele City royalty. They just did the Miss Tooele City pageant, and she said something, and here she's this 18-year-old girl. She said something that really stuck with me. She says, you say so many things to yourself, and her mother had told her, never say something to someone else, or never say something to yourself that you wouldn't say to a friend. And I think so many times that's true. We treat ourselves so much. We're harder on ourselves than we'd ever be on anybody else.
Well, that brings us into mindfulness. Michael Singer, he's got this great thing, Mindfulness 2016. Michael Singer, it's on YouTube when he spoke there. And he talks about this thing. You know that little talking going on in your head? You know the talking that's arguing with the talking? I should get a pizza. Now I'm trying to lose weight. Oh, I should get a pizza. He goes, which one are you? And I asked the kids this, they go, I'm the first one, I'm the second one, I'm both of them. And I said, well, can you hear your dad or mom's voice in your head? And they'll go, well, yeah. I go, are you your dad or mom? Well, no. I said, can you hear a dog barking? Yeah. Are you a dog? No. Do you ever have music playing in your head? Yeah. Are you the music? No. I said, okay, well, consider this. You're the observer who sees all that going on, and that's the beginning of mindfulness. So I'll just ask them, do you ever go, I'm an idiot? And they go, well, yeah. I go, were you born with the words, I'm an idiot? No. You had to hear them. The way a neural pathway is formed, you have a thought, it's tied to an emotion, then there it is. It plays in your brain. And so like I used to have this, if I thought of her, I was sad. If I was sad, I thought of her, and it was like a trench that was dug, and that sadness would never go away. Well, I had to stay off that trench long enough that it could dissolve and go away, and new thought patterns developed around it. So the beginning of mindfulness is doing that. So I learned to observe. So I would tell people, name 5 things in the room. And they might go, I see a refrigerator, a microwave, a stove, I see a sink and a window. I said, great. How much thought did you put into that microwave? And they go, I didn't put any thought into it. Yeah, you noticed it. What if you could do that with your thoughts? You notice them come. I'm an idiot. Oh, there's a thought, and you just let it go. You don't. Now, if I get to the stove and I go, I remember the last time she cooked on that stove, and now I've got all kinds of, I'm reinforcing all these negative thought patterns that I don't want there. So I learned to observe, or even with emotions. Oh, there's sadness. I'm going to observe the sadness. Oh, I want to cry. Okay, I'm going to observe the crying. And I don't judge it. I don't try to figure it out. I just feel it, or I just see it. And so that's the very beginning of mindfulness that was also very helpful.
And I think mindfulness is something we're seeing more of today than it used to be. I think people used to think, well, if you're going to do mindfulness, you're sitting on a little mat and you're sitting Indian style, and I think that turned off a lot of people. And I think the way that it's gone now, people are saying, wow, this really works. Have that moment where you have the quiet, so that you can just kind of be ready for the day. A lot of people do it in the morning and before they head out, and I think it's very powerful. It really is.
Yeah, quiet minds, you'll get a lot more done because you'll have more of those inspired thoughts.
Yeah.
It was described to me like habitual thoughts. I'm an idiot. That's a habitual thought. Mm-hmm. That's not, you wait for that new thought, like you have a problem and, oh, it popped into my head while I was sleeping, or it popped into my head while I was driving, or it popped into my head because your mind quieted down. Mm-hmm. It quieted down that you could see that inspiration, that higher level of consciousness, allowed to see that's always there, but sometimes our brains just make too much noise. I use the snow globe as an example. Mm-hmm. If you shake up the snow globe, can you see clearly? No, those are your thoughts. You can't see clearly at all. But if you wait till it settles, now you can see clearly. But what did you have to do to make it settle?
To let it settle?
Yeah.
Be still.
Yeah, be still. You did nothing. It wasn't, I got to have a positive thought. I've got to, it's just, let it settle. Watch it come, watch it go, watch it come, watch it go. And, oh, I know what we could do.
I like that. That's great. That is really, there's a lot of wisdom in that. You're a smart guy.
No, I learned it from someone else.
No, that's awesome.
I had an original thought once.
So, what do you think the key? What do you think the key to resilience is? Because I think we're seeing less resilience in people too.
I love the word ultra-crepidarianism. It's in the book Think Like a Freak, the guy who wrote Freakonomics. Ultra-crepidarianism is someone who offers an opinion or advice on knowledge that's outside their area of expertise or competence. So I'm going to answer your question. I have no idea. And he also said in that book, the 3 hardest words for people to say is, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Curiosity. They told me, Bob, you're amazingly resilient. And I go, I am? Well, yeah, you get up every single time you're knocked down. And I think if there was a quality, if we could develop curiosity, that's the one thing, I don't know, my parents instilled it in me, but, I'd ask a question, they go to the library, get an answer, come back and let us know what it is. I mean, they taught me to ask questions. I'd start a new job and I wouldn't act like I know it all. I'd said to the CEO, I'll take this job as vice president under one condition. At the end of each day, you spend a half hour to an hour with me and I will have a list of questions. He goes, I wish everyone did that. And I learned really quickly how to do that. So went to college. Oh, how do you get through college? So I started asking questions of all the guys who were seniors and the girls who were seniors. Hey, what do I do? So I think the possibility of getting to resiliency might be curiosity. That's my best guess, but I could be wrong.
No, and I ask those questions to a lot of people because I think that's something that we're seeing. I think kids today are less resilient. I think we're just seeing less and less of it. So it's something that I'm curious about, wondering, how do we get that? How do we build resiliency? So,
well, Brene Brown said, if you want to practice courage, if you want to be courageous, you got to practice courage.
Yeah.
So if you want to practice resiliency, get knocked down, go fail.
Yeah.
I mean, go fail at something. This is one thing my daughter did. She's scared to death of asking people questions. So she leaned into it. She went to the mall and she said, I walked around the mall for half an hour and I couldn't ask somebody what time it was. Then I went to another store, walked around for another half hour. Finally, at the third store, she said, I finally asked somebody what time it was, and they told me. Dad, it scared the heck out of me. In fact, my daughter has become one of my heroes. Talk about leaning into your pain. I think that's how you overcome it. There's my best guess. You lean into it, you practice resiliency. She goes, Dad, I was feeling anxiety, and I put together a sign, and I stood on the second busiest street corner in Utah, and the sign said, the world is a better place with you in it. Dad, I was scared to death. I did it for 5 minutes, and I got out of there. And then I went back for 10 minutes, then I went back for 15, then I went back for 30, and I stayed there for about an hour, and somebody stopped and said, why are you doing this? She goes, because I don't want people to end their lives. And the kid said, we just lost one of our coworkers. You keep doing what you're doing. This is a great work.
It's amazing.
But that might be how you get resilient. You just practice resiliency.
That's a good answer. I like that. Well, tell me, if you had to leave one thought with somebody that is struggling and might have those thoughts of suicide in their mind, if you could say one thing to them, what would you say?
I would say what my doctor said to me back in 2011. He said, and I'm in the middle of these panic attacks and all this stuff, and he said, Bob, I know you don't believe me, but it'll get better one day. And I said, you're right. I don't believe you. And over time, by trying, and I mean, this is like being at the edge of a cliff going, I got to stay on this planet. And I would just try one more day. Sometimes it would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go, I just got to make it till 4. It'd be 4 o'clock. I just got to make it till 5. And so this is what I would say. I know you don't believe me, but it'll get better one day.
And I think that's true. I think so many times, and when somebody gets into that mode where they're ultra focused on the problem, it's like living life with blinders on and they can't see anything but the problem. And so I like that. It will get better. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming out here, hanging out with me in Tooele County and sharing your wisdom with all of us. So You've got a TED Talk that's available on YouTube and probably on your website as well.
Yeah, my website is expertbob.com. It has my real phone number, my real email. If you have questions that you saw here, text me the question, call me. I answer my phone. I mean, I'm unemployed as far as a speaker. Even when I tell the kids in the schools, call me, you can't bother me. And then the other thing is, if you can get me into a school or in front of kids or your family. If you live in Utah, you got a Sunday open or a family reunion. I mean, I do that. And I do it for free. So if it's about this kind of material, I'm just there to help. And somebody asked, do you have time for one last story?
Absolutely.
People ask me why I do this, and there's two reasons, I think. One was when I was playing football, my freshman year in college, I didn't have a great year. And somebody introduced me to a guy named Marv Bateman back in Buffalo. At the time, he was the NFL's all-pro kicker. And he says, oh, your kicker didn't go so well? And he said, what do you got going this week? And he picked me up every single day, took me to Buffalo Bills Rich Stadium, and he taught me how to improve my kicking. And he said, you go tell Coach Edwards that you got better and you worked with me. And he never asked for any. And I was going, why did you do this? So he taught me that. And the other one is, and this is about 3 minutes, but about 12 years ago, I was told that I was going to die. The doctor told me that the little tumor in my chest had spread from somewhere else in my body. And he says, Bob, you have less than a year to live. Now, he was wrong, but I didn't know that then. For 28 days, I didn't know that he was wrong. Well, after 28 days, the Huntsman Center calls me back and says, hey, Bob, we made a mistake. You're okay.
Wow.
And actually, I knew about gratitude. I was grateful. In fact, I got my dentist appointment back because I had canceled that earlier. But in that 28 days, there was a young lady, 13 years old, going through chemotherapy for a brain tumor, and she changed my life when she did this. After all she's going through, she showed up at my door with a plate of cookies and said, I know what you're going through, and I think I can help.
Wow.
So that reminds me of the man in the hole. And because somebody asked me, why did you stay up all night helping me last night? He was going through some heavy yuck. And I said, I heard this story called The Man in the Hole on West Wing. A guy falls into a hole, he can't get out. And so a little while later, a clergyman comes by. Hey, could you help me out? He goes, sure. And he writes out a prayer and he throws it into the hole. A little while later, the doctor comes by. Hey, doc, can you help me out? Sure. And he writes out a prescription and he throws it in the hole. Then the guy's best friend comes by. He said, oh, I'm glad to see you. Can you help me out? I said, sure. And he jumped down into the hole. He goes, are you stupid? Why'd you do that? He goes, I've been here before. Let me show you the way out. So if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, panic, if you're sitting there at the cliff, I've been there before. I and many others can help you get out of there. We can show you the way out.
I love it. That's a great visual. Well, I appreciate you so much. And it's expertbob.com, expertbob.com, right? Mm-hmm. And go on and watch his TED Talk. You've got a lot of videos. I was watching some of the 1 Minute with Bob's this morning. I think the last one I saw was the flat tire on the bicycle.
Today,
Yeah.
I'd be grateful for a flat tire. It's on Instagram, Bob Memory.
I love it. But no, really, I can't tell you how much it means to me that you'd be willing to come out here and do this. And if you're watching this podcast and you're struggling and you're in a spot that is giving you thoughts that are scaring you or making you uncomfortable, reach out to somebody. Find somebody that you trust. And if you don't have that person in your life right now, reach out and call the Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. We're so grateful for you being with us and coming back for another week. And it means so much to me that you're willing to spend an hour a week with us and pay attention to what we have to say and our guests have to say. I know you're not coming for me, you're coming for the guests. And tonight was a special night. I really do appreciate it. Big thanks to GTM Builders for, again, sponsoring the podcast, allowing us to record in their beautiful model home. And a big thanks to the sponsor of tonight's episode, A. Warner Homes Real Estate. If you're in the market for a new home, reach out to GTM Builders. Visit them at gtmbuilders.com or give A. Warner Homes and Real Estate a call at 801. Boy, that was a tough one. 801-5.
No pressure. The blood's leaving his frontal lobe.
And the sad thing is, this is the memory master too. We're gonna keep him after and have him tell you. Reach out to A. Warner Homes and let them give you a hand. We appreciate you again. Thanks for being here. Take care.